ripeto velocemente. Era i primi anni 70-72 specificamente, e Srila Prabhupada incoraggiava molto di distribuzione di libri, aveva appena cominciato, praticamente l'anno precedente, ma 1972 era il primo anno di una grande esplosione della distribuzione di libri di Srila Prabhupada. Io ero come responsabile del Tempio, lo spingevo molto la distribuzione di libri, ma allo stesso tempo trascurava di leggere i libri di Prabhupada. E un giorno, che per qualche motivo Krishna nel mio cuore, Prabhupada faceva sentire molto molto forte questa, che non sto studiando. E quel giorno lì arriva una lettera di risposta da Srila Prabhupada, che scrive: Anyone here not understand Italian? You don't understand Italian. Yes, it was promised it would be in English, but... C'è qualcuno che non capisce inglese per niente? Okay, I'll go back to English then. No, adesso faccio in inglese. In inglese, se c'è qualcuno che vuole tradurre per chi non capisce italiano. Non so se conosce. So Prabhupada wrote in this... Perché adesso comincia ad arrivare un po' di devoti da fuori. Ha risposto in questa lettera. Prabhupada responded to my letter. In that letter that I sent to Prabhupada, I said how we were distributing so many books, and the devotees were very enthusiastic to distribute his books. And so he responded, he responded, I am pleased to know that all of you are enthusiastically engaged in this service, distributing books. After receiving my, in this modern godless civilization, this is Prabhupada's letter, the direct words Prabhupada wrote. In this modern godless civilization, everyone is greatly suffering due to lack of the real knowledge of Krishna consciousness. And our task is very great and very important. We must deliver this pure science of God to everyone and give them the chance to make their lives successful. So you continue this book distribution program very nicely, and at the same time take advantage of these books yourselves. Not that you just distribute, but neglect reading them yourself. Always read them, especially Krishna book. This was quite a surprise, because we generally think we should read Bhagavad Gita. Generally, Prabhupada said, read Bhagavad Gita. I know other devotees that Prabhupada wrote the same thing, but he said, read the Bhagavad Gita. But somehow, a letter from me, he said, read the Krishna book. So if we think even we may not be in physical presence of the spiritual master, he knows our heart. Prabhupada, once he was asked, how do you know what the disciples are thinking? Prabhupada said, Krishna's in their heart, and the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the super soul. So he's in contact with the super soul. So if he needs to know. He also one time said, I also know because they write me letters. Sometimes the devotee think it's a mystical process, but Prabhupada also said that I know what the devotees are thinking because they write me a letter, or they speak to me. But in this case, somehow Prabhupada, he understood, he knew that I wasn't reading, he knew that I wasn't studying, so he wrote this. And you know that he knew that many of the devotees, they were neglecting to read it because we were very young and passionate, and Prabhupada gave so much encouragement to the distribution of his books. He says that we can save the godless civilization by distributing this knowledge. So we were very, very enthusiastic to please him in this way. But at the same time, he knew that we were, he would say also that these books are for you. I'm writing these books for you, not just for selling for the public, but I'm writing them for you. Not that you just distribute but neglect reading them yourself. Always read them, especially Krishna book. Every time you have a spare moment, you should read. This will help you to advance in Krishna consciousness and will give you the ability to convince others. Hoping this will meet you in good health and happy mood. Prabhupada would sign his letters at the bottom. Hoping this meets you in good health and happy mood. So this is I took this as very clear instruction to read especially Krishna. Not only, Prabhupada also says in Chaitanya Charitamrita that if the devotees are simply chanting, if they don't read, if you want, we can try to find, se vuoi possiamo trovare qualcuno che traduce in italiano. Se vuoi, posso mettere un angolino e qualcuno può tradurre in italiano, se vuoi. But now there's a number of you that are from other countries, so English we'll do in English. And Prabhupada explained that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he explains that, I'll read this piece from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because we can try to understand, because how many of you have read the whole Krishna book? At least once. Not everybody. How many of you have read the Bhagavad Gita? You see, everybody's read Bhagavad Gita, but they haven't read Krishna book. How many of you think the Krishna book is just a storybook for children? Some of you think like that. Well, let me read to you what Prabhupada said, how he wrote the Krishna book, because he explains this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada says, and this is near the end, it's the Anchalila, that's the last part of Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he gave this, explains this. He says, knowing myself to be an old man and almost invalid because of rheumatism, because remember, Prabhupada, even coming over on the boat, Prabhupada had a heart attack, twice a heart attack. So he began in 1966, he began the movement. He was not in good health. He was feeling very strongly the urgency to complete the Srimad Bhagavatam, to give the world these books. That's why he didn't sleep. He would stay up all night practically translating and commenting on Srimad Bhagavatam, just to give it to the world. But at the same time, he was very concerned that, will I be able to finish the Srimad Bhagavatam? Will I be able to complete? Will I be able to arrive to the 10th canto and tell the world about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So in that urgency, because not only did he have a heart attack on the boat, but then even just after 1.5 years or so, in 1967, he became sick again. He had heart trouble again, and he would go to the hospital. So he became very worried that, will I be able to? Because one of his main mission was to introduce to the world Krishna, that God is a person, and we know him. We know what he looks like. We know who he is. We know his. Prabhupada even said we even know his address and his phone number. If you have Krishna has a phone, but Prabhupada said we know his address and his phone number. To mean that we know him intimately, who God is and what he's doing, which is most important news to communicate to the world, because people have become atheist and godless because they have no information. God is some energy, some abstract idea, and so how can you become attracted? I always give the example, like if you walk into a travel agency. No one goes to travel agencies anymore, mostly because you do it yourself online. But there used to be that you would go to a travel agency, and what do they have in the travel agency? They have many pamphlets, booklets with pictures and names of places, with pictures of these beautiful places, so that you develop a desire to go there. But if you walk into a travel agency and it's just empty and there's just a white wall there and someone sitting at a desk, where do you want to go? I don't know. How will you be attracted to go someplace? So the same as Prabhupada wanted to give this information that Krishna is, God is a person, he has a name, he has friends, he has a personality, he has certain qualities. So we'll become attracted to God and attracted and distracted from Maya, from the material illusion. So Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, knowing myself to be an old man and almost invalid because of rheumatism, Prabhupada said if I didn't take my walk every day and get massage, I would become blocked up. He said I would become blocked up with rheumatism. So it was a big struggle. We can appreciate. If anybody here over 70? No. Is anyone here over 70 years old? No, I'm the only one over 70 years old. I can tell you from personal experience that it's more and more difficult. There's more pains in the body. You have to spend more time. Radhanath Swami, he mentioned to me once, he said, it's just a fact. When you get old, you have to spend more time taking care of the body. It's just a reality. Because it's a machine, as we know from Bhagavad Gita. It's a machine that gets old and starts to break. So Prabhupada's machine was not in very good condition. So it was a struggle. It's not that it was easy to not sleep most of the night, to travel constantly, but he sacrificed like this just to tell the world about Krishna, tell the world about that God is an all-loving personality who wears a yellow dhoti, plays a flute, and has pastimes with his friends in Vrindavan. And this is the news that Prabhupada wanted to distribute to the world. So he says that, I have already translated the essence of all literatures, the 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, as a summary study in English. It's a Krishna book. This is in 1974 in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when Prabhupada wrote. And Krishna book he wrote in 1969. So Prabhupada is speaking about something he already did. As a summary study in English, I started the Krishna consciousness movement at the age of 70. Now I am 78, and so my death is imminent. Se qualcuno vuole una traduzione in italiano, abbiamo la nostra traduttrice qua, se vuoi restare, si mette un po' nell'angolino là, se vuoi. Okay. C'è qualcun altro che hai bisogno? Grazie Martino, lo so che è austero tradurre, almeno si sente 2 volte. And so my Prabhupada was always feeling this urgency. My death is imminent. Prabhupada even says it here. He said, I'm 78 and my death is imminent. It's anyone who's young, you don't feel like your death is imminent. Actually, it is imminent because the time you'll find out that time just flies by. But when it gets over 70, it's getting closer and closer. It's getting very close. So Prabhupada said like that, and we know he only lived for another 3 years after 78. I'm trying to finish the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam as soon as possible, but before finishing it, I have given my readers the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that if I die before finishing the whole task, they may enjoy this book, which is the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you feel a little afraid when you see 27 volumes, or now it's 18 volumes, but they're big, if you feel a little timore in front of such a vast literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam, you can read just the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam in just one book, one volume, Krishna book. And you'll find that the Krishna book, somebody thinks it's just stories, but it's actually full of philosophy. It's full of philosophy. Where do you find the philosophy in the Krishna book mostly? Does anyone know? Also, but specifically in the prayers, you'll find that there are many chapters, prayers to Akrura, prayers by Akrura, prayers by Indra, prayers by Brahma, prayers to the Vedas, personified Vedas. There's throughout the Krishna book. And that's when Shukadeva Goswami, he stops telling the pastimes and philosophy. The prayers are all philosophy, reminding us who Krishna is. That Krishna is he's the supreme controller, the cause of all causes. All these things are repeated throughout the Krishna book. And if you don't believe me, you start the Krishna book and right away in the second chapter. Anyone know what the second chapter of Krishna book is? Nobody knows. Demigods, yes, thank you. Prayers by the demigods. So immediately, even before Krishna appears, there's repeated, because the whole rest of the whole first 9 cantos is to establish and place us at the lotus feet of Krishna, to understand that he's the supreme controller, supreme enjoyer, the cause of all causes. His power as the Supreme Personality of God. It's so that when we read his pastimes that seem like a human being, then we'll remember that no, they're not ordinary pastimes. They may seem like pastimes of an ordinary human being. Caterina, if you want, se vuoi, c'è traduzione in italiano. Perché le lezioni in inglese, ma se vuoi, se non capisci inglese, c'è traduzione in italiano. Per chi hai bisogno. So in case we forget when we arrive to the 10th canto, it's repeated. Every few chapters there's a whole new explanation, a philosophical explanation of Krishna's position, how he's the Supreme Personality of God, and he's not an ordinary human being. And then it continues with Krishna's pastime. So that it's all perfectly organized and planned by Shukadeva Goswami to bring us to the final conclusion of going back to home, back to God, to surrender to Krishna without falling into illusion and thinking that Krishna's pastimes are ordinary or material or anything like that. So I wanted to have a list of the purpose of the Krishna book. What is the purpose? Why did Prabhupada write the Krishna book? And he explains himself in the Krishna book what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to arrive at by reading the Krishna book. And the first one is to show how Krishna is the supreme, demonstrate how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God is great, but we know how great God is. Everybody, all religions, they say God is Allah Akbar, God is great. Everybody knows God is great. Otherwise, how can he be God if he's not great? But Srimad Bhagavatam explains to us how great he is in detail, how he's pervading everything. Everything is his energy. There's so many explanations of how God is great. So one of the purposes of Krishna book is to explain to us in detail who God is and how great he is. Anyone have any questions so far or reflections? Because you remember when we chant Hare Krishna, all of you chant Hare Krishna regularly? Hare Krishna mantra? I hope so. I don't see any new guests here. I see everyone is chanting as a chanter. So we're chanting Krishna's name, Krishna. We're coming in contact directly with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. His holy name and Krishna, there's no difference. And we're praying to Krishna. Prabhupada gave the simple translation of the Maha Mantra. O energy of the Lord, O my Lord, please engage me in your service. We're praying to Krishna, the person, to please engage me in your service. So, first thing is we should understand who is Krishna. So Prabhupada gave us the Krishna book for this, so that we have a full understanding. And somebody might also say, well, isn't it that you're supposed to read the 10th canto after you've read all the first 9 cantos? So why did Prabhupada give the Krishna book? Way before, he had only translated the first canto when he gave us the Krishna book. From the 2nd to the 9th canto, there was not there already. So why would he give us? as I mentioned before, it's because of that urgency. He didn't know how long he would have, if he would make it. In fact, he wasn't able to complete the 10th canto. He arrived only to the 13th chapter of 90 chapters of the 10th canto. So fortunately, he gave us the Krishna book in time. But if you look carefully at the Krishna book, you'll find that there's, for instance, 250 verses of Bhagavad Gita quoted in the Krishna book. Prabhupada, it's one of the most amazing literature, the Krishna book, because it's a complete package. There's the Bhagavad Gita, first cantos of Srimad. It's all there if you read carefully the Krishna book. So you don't have to fear that, well, I shouldn't enter into read Krishna's pastimes until I've read all the first 9 cantos. It's all in one complete package. It's very interesting also that what was the first book that we distributed in Mass? When Prabhupada started book distribution in 71, was it the Bhagavad Gita? No. We started distributing Bhagavad Gita in Mass afterwards, after 72, 73, 74. But the very first book that devotees started distributing in quantity was the Krishna book. Because like I said, if you want to give somebody one book that's got everything, give them the Krishna book, because it's the Bhagavad Gita is it's included there. Am I going too fast? Sto andando troppo veloce? Okay. The second purpose of the Krishna book is to satisfy our loving propensity. If we want to love someone, you can't love somebody that you don't know. And the more you know about the person, then your love increases. If you read about Krishna, you'll fall in love with him. That's the aim of the Krishna book. You should come to the end of Krishna book, and you should fall in love with Krishna. So it's to satisfy our loving propensity, that we can know who Krishna is, and then you can't help but love him, because he's all attractive personality. And the third is out of compassion to let the world hear about Krishna and thus be liberated. Prabhupada wrote the Krishna book out of his intense, deep compassion for the world, because he saw the world as becoming more and more atheist, more and more materialistic, going further and further down on the influence of Kali Yuga, because they don't have any information of the spiritual world, what happens after this life, that there is a spiritual world, that there is God, he is a personality. Because there's no scientific knowledge about who God is, then people they lose interest. And what is the automatic alternative? Materialism. They become attracted to. Because when you say God, why did the Christians call Jesus God? Why did they come to the idea that he's God? But then they call the Father God the Father. But because they have close the door, please. Cute. Prabhupada has always had this situation that there's the corridor, there's the entrance of the temple, and that there's always a group of people during any lecture, group of devotees. So he wanted to give people the information that God exists and he has a personality, so we can become attracted and develop love for him. And that's because it's the only way that people are going to be saved from gross materialism and falling into lower and lower conditions of materialism. And then the fourth one is out of compassion, same compassion, but Krishna exhibits his Vrindavan pastimes to attract the conditioned souls back to Godhead. It's actually very, very rare. Krishna comes only once in the day of Brahma in his original form. Because as we know, there's different types of spiritual planets in the spiritual world. Vaikuntha planet, where Krishna is more as Vishnu, as God, the all-powerful. and but to exhibit his Vrindavan pastimes, the pastimes when Krishna is completely, we say that it's God when he goes home. God, instead of being in the office at his work, he goes home and he relaxes. Just like the president of a country, sometime during the day he goes home and he takes his hat off and his coat and he relaxes. He jokes with his wife. He maybe talks with his friends, and he's relaxed. And the relations are very intimate. Whereas when he's in his position as president, or when Krishna is in his position as Vishnu or God, everything is very formal. So it's not so sweet. So Krishna exhibits, in the Krishna book, the first part of Krishna book is Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, which are with extreme intimacy and open and friendly. And then Prabhupada says, number 5 is the tendency to read fiction can be directed to Krishna for the imperishable satisfaction of the soul. I sometimes give the example, if now we're all paying, thank you because you're paying attention, but I'm sure if right now I had a pile of newspapers in my hand, and I throw the newspapers right there in the middle of everyone, and they have big headlines, war in Ukraine, economic crisis, everybody would be very interested because we all want to know the news. We want to know the news of what's happening in the world. We all like to read novels. Sometimes we like to watch movies, stories. We like to hear about people. We like to hear what other people are doing, the stories of other people. So Prabhupada said Krishna book will satisfy that desire for fiction when we want to hear stories about people and events and things happening. And Krishna book will satisfy that desire and purify that desire because we can read. And the nice thing about transcendental pastimes is that you can read them again. If I put the newspaper there, everybody will look at it once. Maybe if you didn't catch something, you may read it again and then finish. And then we start the fire. So maybe you can move over this way because I'm not in front of Prabhupada. Even though he can see over you because you're sitting down. But the only thing I use newspapers for, I get them from the local bar that they have leftover because they're very good for starting fires. Newspapers are good for starting fires. If you have a wood stove, we have a wood stove. If you live in the mountain, you have a wood stove. And so newspaper is very good for starting fires, and it's also very good for cleaning windows. Did you know that you can clean windows very well? It's the best thing of all for cleaning windows is newspapers. I don't know why, but it works very well. But the pastimes of Krishna, the events in the spiritual world. One time they asked Prabhupada's spiritual master, why are you putting out a newspaper about Krishna consciousness every day? He was actually publishing a newspaper, a daily newspaper about Krishna conscious philosophy. He would actually, I heard that he would put some regular news in one part of it, and then there would be commentary and then a philosophical discussion on the other part. And he explained that in each city there's so many newspapers. I remember I'm from San Francisco, there was 2 main newspapers in one little city. And every city has so many, and Prabhupada said that, and that's just to tell you about the events in this mundane, tiny little planet or one tiny little city. But in the spiritual world, it's infinite. There's unlimited planets. There's unlimited activities going on every moment. There's no time. It's eternally ever fresh. So he said we could make a newspaper every moment, every second. There's so much news from the spiritual world. Just that we don't know. People don't know about it. So that tendency to read books, stories, novels, movies, newspapers, this can all be purified by reading Krishna book, that desire to hear stories. Then it is stated in the beginning, just by reading this one book, Krishna, love of God, it will fructify. Prabhupada says, and it's interesting because he says right in the beginning, in the introduction of Krishna book, he said, just by reading this one book, Krishna, love of Godhead will fructify, which is the goal of bhakti-yoga, to Krishna prema. And then he repeats it again at the end, in the last couple of pages of the Krishna book. Prabhupada says, therefore, regardless of what one is, if one wants the association of Lord Krishna in the transcendental kingdom of God for eternity in blissful existence, one must hear about the pastimes of Lord Krishna and chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, are so powerful that simply by hearing, reading, and memorizing this book, Krishna, one is sure to be transferred to the spiritual world. Sure to be transferred to the spiritual world, which is ordinarily very difficult to achieve. The description of the pastimes of Lord Krishna is so attractive that automatically it gives us impetus to study repeatedly. And the more we study the pastimes of the Lord, the more we become attached to Him, and this very attachment to Krishna makes one eligible to be transferred to his abode, Goloka Vrindavan. Isn't that amazing? There's an amazing offer. Offers made in the beginning and guaranteed at the end of Krishna book that you just read this one book repeatedly, you can go back to Godhead. You will. Prabhupada says you will. He doesn't say maybe you will, but he said you will. Because the pastimes of Krishna, hearing the pastimes of Krishna is so powerful that it purifies us from all material contamination and develops our love for Krishna. So this is the purpose of the Krishna book, to give us the chance to repeatedly hear and chant the pastimes of the Lord, and thus become attached to Him and very easily go back to God. Such a simple process. And you'll find, I personally, since that letter, I tried to read one chapter of Krishna book every day. Every day, if you read one chapter of Krishna book, maybe you take a few more days to read. What is the longest chapter in Krishna book? Everyone know? Prayers to the Vedas. How many of you have the experience that when you arrive at the prayers to the personified Vedas, it's a little, you could say it's heavy, it's a little thick philosophy, it's just pure philosophy. It's one of the last chapters in the Krishna book. It's like that wraps it all up philosophically. But I can promise you that if you go through it, read the prayers to the personified Vedas, after you've read Krishna book many times, you'll actually become to really relish prayers to the personified Vedas. You'll know that you're really advancing when you're happy when you get to the prayers to the personified Vedas, because it's actually very illuminating, because it really helps to clarify and understand and be totally convinced, to wrap up the 10th canto of the Krishna book. You'll be totally convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm His eternal servant, and I'll surrender. And this is kind of controversial, kind of interesting. This next purpose, Krishna exhibits his pastimes with the gopis to attract the conditioned souls. Prabhupada says some quite, you could say, shocking statements right in the beginning of Krishna book. But actually, if you think about it, it's actually very logical and very interesting. Prabhupada says in the beginning, Krishna book, introduction actually, the attraction of loving affairs on the basis of sex feeling is the original feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we, the conditioned souls, being part and parcel of the Supreme, have such feelings also. Did you ever wonder why you have sex feeling, sex desire? Because originally that attraction is there in the Supreme Personality of God. It's a very deep subject. It's not an easy subject to understand, but it's actually, if you analyze it, you may question, well, why in this world are there men and women? Why am I attracted? And vice versa. Why? Just by chance? No, because it's actually adi rasa. It's called adi rasa. Adi means the original relationship, and that original relationship is between Radha and Krishna. Like I said, I'm not going to go into it very much because it's a very deep, difficult to understand. As long as we are on the bodily platform, practically we won't be able to understand. It's very difficult to understand. But we can at least understand. Prabhupada says, he writes it right in the introduction, that we, the conditioned souls, being part and parcel of the Supreme, have such feelings also, but they are experienced within a perverted, minute condition. We want to try to imitate Krishna and to be the enjoyer, try to enjoy, but we're trying to enjoy matter, dead, inert matter. So that's why there's never really happiness. It's a desire that can never be satisfied, never fulfilled. It's the great illusion, because we're trying to imitate Krishna. But his loving exchanges are totally pure and pure loving exchanges. Our pastimes are simply pure exploitative, egoistic, mundane pastimes. But they look like it. So therefore Prabhupada says that this book can also attract even gross materialists, because the gross materialists, I remember I walked into a store to sell the book. I think it was a Krishna book some years ago in Bologna. Bologna, as you may know, Bologna is a rather un po' grossolano come mentalità. Si chiama Bologna il grasso, not only for their eating habits, but also for the eating habits. But it's quite a passionate city, you might say. So this guy immediately said, but don't you have any pornography? Pornography. That's all I'm interested in. I said, Guru Charna has the best lines for this. Can you say your lines from Sankirtan when people are kind of like that? No. I remember you told me once that when people say, yeah, I'm just interested in sex, I just want pornography. You say, this is way beyond that. You'd say to them, you're still there with that. Said, yeah, he would respond when people would say, like the very gross people like that, he would say, oh, you're still there with that? This is much better than that. This is a happiness much greater than that. And they kind of, what? But Prabhupada mentions this. Therefore, when those who are after sex life in this material world hear about Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, they will relish transcendental pleasure, although it appears to be materialistic. Like I said, it's a delicate topic, but Prabhupada had great hope that people will become purified by hearing, even because actually it's stated that in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, that by hearing these pastimes of Krishna, the gopis, you'll become free of lust. If by hearing them, if you increase your lusty desire, then you shouldn't hear. Then you should stop and go back to other pastimes. But these people, we're talking about just ordinary, mundane people. If they hear, they actually become purified of those. The advantage will be that they will gradually be elevated to the spiritual platform. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that if one hears the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis from authorities, with submission, there's no greater authority than Srila Prabhupada. He's giving. And if you know about other books that explain Krishna's pastimes, much more in detail, much more intimately. But the Krishna book is perfect because it tells of these pastimes, but not in intimate details. Just gives some idea. So it's easily purifying for the conditioned soul. without risking that they'll fall into seeing it as mundane. From authority with submission, with the humble attitude, then he will be promoted to the platform of transcendental loving service to the Lord, and the material disease of lust within his heart will be completely vanquished. In other words, it will counteract the material sex life. So that's the basic principle of material life, the sex attraction. So by hearing about Krishna's pastimes, especially with the gopis, then which is there in the Krishna book, you'll actually become purified from. And that's how we can see if we're actually advancing, how much our lusty desire to enjoy matter is decreasing and our attraction to serving Krishna is increasing. Okay. So then Prabhupada continues with the same points. He says, in order to show them special favor, Krishna exhibited this Rasa Lila dance. It is just to captivate the conditioned soul. Because everyone is attracted, everyone wants, like I said, this man when I walked in, he said, I want pornography, give me some. So everyone was interested in these things. Because we think that that's where that's the highest pleasure, that's where I'm going to become happy, that's what's going to make me happy. But it doesn't work. Material lusty desire will never be fulfilled and never make us happy. That's not where but real happiness is in hearing Krishna's transcendental, seemingly lusty activities. But it's not lust. Lust means selfish desire to enjoy. By Krishna's pastimes, there's no lust because it's all desire to serve, desire to love. There's no lust. So Prabhupada says, since they are very much attracted by sexology, they can enjoy the same life with Krishna and thus become liberated from the material condition. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a transcendental literary work entitled Krishna Bhavanamrita, which is full with Krishna's pastimes. Exalted devotees can remain absorbed in Krishna thought by reading such books. And then Prabhupada, in his humility, says, any book of Krishna Lila, even this book, Krishna, or our teachings of Lord Chaitanya, is actually solace for devotees feeling separation from Krishna. So any questions? Like I said, this is a very kind of shocking topic, but a controversial topic. Maybe you have some questions about that? But Prabhupada gives us right in the introduction, the Krishna book, he explains this, that Krishna, it's not by accident that Krishna comes and exhibits these pastimes. It's to attract our mind away from, to the Adi Rasa. Adi Rasa means the original loving relationship, the original relationship between Radha and Krishna. That's the supreme perfection. And so, by hearing about Krishna's loving relationship, then we'll become attracted and we'll lose attraction for these material relationships, which is what binds us to the material world. And that's what, it's called Maitunya Agara, that's what binds us to the material world, these especially lusty attractions between the opposite sexes. So do you have any questions about this? I don't know how much we have 10 more minutes. Yes?
About Krishna not being lusty, how to understand it in a way that Prabhupada always says that Krishna is the only enjoyer?
He says that Krishna is the only enjoyer. He says that he's not lusty, but he says he's the only enjoyer. Yes, because everything is his property. Everything belongs to him. It's his to enjoy. But when Krishna is enjoying, he reciprocates by loving, he reciprocates with the love given by devotee. He's not an enjoyer like we think of il padrone, the boss, the enjoyer who's simply taking, exploiting, making us suffer for his enjoyment. Krishna's giving his love as much as we come towards Krishna, try to please him, he comes towards us 10 more times, 10 times, 100 times more, giving his love. His only desire, his only interest is to exchange loving relationships. And that way, as part of Krishna, then we enjoy. Prabhupada always gives the example of the hand serves the stomach and enjoys, we put the water on the root of the tree, and that way all the branches, all the leaves, they enjoy. They're nourished. So by trying to please Krishna, loving Krishna, and letting Krishna enjoy us, our loving service, he reciprocates by giving much more love, and that's how we become happy. That we become happy because Krishna is satisfied and pleased, and we're part and parcel of him, so we also will feel happiness and satisfaction. So it's a loving exchange, it's not a lusty exchange. We know in material life it's a lusty exchange. It means I want to enjoy you, you want to enjoy me, as much as when you don't give me pleasure anymore, goodbye, finish the relationship, and vice versa. So that's lusty. But in the material world, that's why it's said you should be very careful about hearing those pastimes, because it looks to be like the material relationship in this world between man and woman. But it's not. It actually has nothing to do with it. It just apparently looks like it on the outside. But Prabhupada does, it's interesting because generally we don't speak about these things, we don't, it's not, but if you actually look in the Krishna book, he actually probably, right from the beginning, he says that this is also part of, you can also become purified by hearing about these pastimes. And he's explained it in such a way, when he gets to those chapters, he definitely didn't want devotees. In fact, there was a time when some group of devotees, when they first had, they said, no, we're only going to read the chapters about the Rasa Lila. And Prabhupada became very angry, because we have to read all of it. But you'll gradually come to reading that, and then there's so many other pastimes. But it's not only that, but that's also there in Krishna's pastimes, in Krishna book. And Prabhupada explains that it will purify you. But he gave it in such a way, that there's, you won't see it as mundane, because he doesn't give all. But then if you come to the platform of becoming more purified, then he even mentions this other book, Krishna Bhavanamrita. Prabhupada even says that there's another, which is very elevated, it's a very intimate book of all Krishna's intimate pastimes. I'll read two more things, and then any other question? Yeah.
The first part of Krishna's life is in Della, really sweet and lovely. Rather than the second part, after living in Della and establishing
Mathura and then Dwarka.
There's more bitterness in my opinion, because you have a lot of war.
Krishna is killing a demon in Vrindavan every day. Every day he would kill a demon.
What, sorry?
Every day in Vrindavan, Krishna would kill at least one demon. So there was fighting also in Vrindavan. But it was fun. It was like a pastime.
My question is, how can we enter in that fighting mood in the second part, which is totally different from the first part of his life?
Actually, Prabhupada explains that when we were mentioning about the Rasa Lila thing, but Prabhupada explains that for a real devotee of Krishna, he likes to hear about everything. If you really love somebody, everything they do, I mean, there's a description in Nectar of Devotion that the gopis, who are the greatest lovers of Krishna, they're talking about, when Krishna, he lies down, he lies on his left hand, his left elbow, and then he plays the flute. Even a little thing like that Krishna leans on his left elbow. For a devotee, that's relishable. Krishna fights with Shalva and kills the demon. Because the important thing to understand is that even killing the demons, they're all liberated. It's a pastime. It's an enjoyment. Krishna, because Krishna's the original person, he also has one of his propensities is a propensity that we have. He has the propensity to want. Sometimes he likes to fight. He also likes to fight, and he also comes in this world to annihilate the demons and reestablish devotees, because sometimes it gets out of hand, the demons kind of take over, and so Krishna comes to push back and annihilate demons and reestablish. That's what the whole battle of Kurukshetra is about, reestablishing the principles of religion. So that, if we love somebody, then we love everything they do, even the smallest thing, even it's all attractive, because it's all good. Whatever Krishna does, it's all for the good of everyone. Like I said, when he kills the demons, they're liberated. He liberates them from the material world. They go back to the spiritual world. So it's all positive. Even though it looks like it's war, you cut his hand off, you cut his head off. It's pretty graphic. Krishna's regularly with Shalva. Cut his head off. Not Shalva, many different demons. Shishupal I was thinking of. But it was a pastime. And there's different there's the basic 5 relationships of Krishna, principally 4, but then there's another 7 relationships, and one of those is ghastly, which, like horror, ghastly, fighting, like that. And that's also relishable, because like I said, nobody dies, nobody's finished. They're purified, they're liberated, so it's good. But you have to study a little more philosophically to understand and appreciate. And it's also because different devotees have different relationships with Krishna. Not everybody is destined for Goloka Vrindavan. Not everyone has that relation. Some have a relationship with Krishna as in Dwarka, as a king. Uddhava appreciates the gopis in Vrindavan, but he'll never become a gopi. He has his eternal relationship as Krishna's cousin, friend in Dwarka. That's his eternal relationship. But at the same time, he worships the relationship of the gopis with Krishna. So every living entity has a particular relationship with Krishna, and that includes also different incarnations of Krishna, and Shringadeva, there's all different pastimes and incarnations, because Krishna has an unlimited desire to enjoy, unlimited desire to have loving exchanges, so there's an unlimited variety of different ways that living entities reciprocate and exchange loving relations with Krishna. We have the great fortune, you'll see, even in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, he was preaching about Radha and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. But he had some devotees who were devotees of Ramachandra, and of course we know that in a certain way they tried to get them chant Hare Krishna, Krishna is supreme. And this was a Marigupta, right? Marigupta, and all night long, he'd been a devotee of Rama, always meditating on Rama, and all night long he tried, I just can't give up Rama, I'd rather die than I can't give up chanting Ram. And when he went back to Lord Chaitanya, I failed, I just can't do it, chant Hare Krishna, because I'm sold my soul to Ram. And Lord Chaitanya said, very good, I was just testing, I wanted to see your devotion. And he said, you're Hanuman, you're Ram's greatest devotee. You're actually an incarnation of Hanuman. It's not black and white, it's an unlimited variety, and the more you go along, that's what you'll find. The more you go along, read Srimad Bhagavatam, read Chaitanya Charitamrita, read Prabhupada's books, there's just unlimited variety opens up, because Krishna is unlimited. He has unlimited desire to enjoy loving exchanges, and so there's an unlimited number of living entities, expansions that exchange with him. We're particularly at Gaudiya Vaishnava, we worship Radha and Krishna, but that doesn't mean that's the most intimate knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that doesn't mean there's not so many other planets, Vaikuntha planets, with other forms of God, other forms. That's why Prabhupada said when he came to the Western world, he said, if you're Christian, if you're following, if you worship God in that way, fine. Important is that you're worshiping God and you're following His instructions. But if that's your relationship, some people have that relationship, they're just, born and raised and they're attracted and they feel that relationship with Jesus Christ, and that kind of relation, that's fine. Because each one of us is different. Each one of us has a particular... But like I said, Gaudiya Vaishnava, the Lord Chaitanya's teaching is... And Prabhupada revealed Goloka Vrindavan, which is the most intimate, highest planet of the spiritual world. And it is not revealed, it's not always revealed. It's a special Lord Chaitanya in this Kali Yuga now. One of his missions in particular was to reveal Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, and the loving exchanges in Goloka Vrindavan. But it's not always like that. It's not even Lord Chaitanya in different eras, different other Kali Yugas, it doesn't always reveal that. That's why we say we're very, very, very fortunate, because somehow we're getting this information, that's being opened up to us, the possibility to go to Goloka Vrindavan. Maybe to become a blade of grass. Uddhava became a blade of grass. Anything else? Yeah.
In the devotion, chapter 7, Prabhupada says, explains that the one shouldn't give many examples or read provide example books. And he demonstrates quite fast, outside. Practically, if one very carefully reads the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya and method of devotion, that will give him sufficient knowledge on different kinds of spiritual concepts. One needs not take the trouble to read other books.
What?
One need not take the trouble to read other books.
Yeah, it's not necessary to read.
How can we really contradiction here? Because Prabhupada says about Krishna book.
Srimad Bhagavatam is same as Krishna book, like I said before, is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's the same thing. If you read a Krishna book, read Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the same Srimad Bhagavatam. When Prabhupada wrote the Nectar Devotion, it was 1969, he was writing at the Krishna book hadn't come out yet. The Krishna book wasn't printed yet. When they came out practically around the same time. Prabhupada was writing them in Los Angeles. He was writing Nectar Devotion and Krishna book right at that time. But like I said, Krishna book is Srimad Bhagavatam, so that's not different. It's not that he didn't mention the Krishna book. Why not? But our Lord Chaitanya pushed principally the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Those are Krishna Katha. That's Lord Chaitanya's mission, particularly in Prabhupada's mission. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Those are and then Chaitanya Charitamrita about Lord Chaitanya goes to the highest level. In other words, everything is included in Prabhupada's books. Everything is there, necessary to become fully Krishna conscious. But at the same time, Prabhupada mentions in a couple of places, like I read before, this Krishna Bhavanamrita is one of the books of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He mentions about reading it. And he also mentions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that if you want to understand the transcendental rasas and relationships in the Srimad Bhagavatam, read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, a book by one of the most important book of the Goswamis. And he also mentions other times about reading the books. But that comes naturally. If you've read thoroughly many times Prabhupada's books, you have a very deep understanding of Prabhupada's books, then you may be inspired to read those other books in an authorized version. But it's not necessary, but some devotees, after many years of reading Prabhupada's books, then they may read those other books, but under the guidance of their spiritual master also. But Prabhupada said it's not necessary. You can become fully Krishna conscious and go back to God at reading those 4. Srimad Bhagavatam is 18 volumes, not just 4 books. It's the complete science of Krishna. Everything is there, in other words. You can go to 7 o'clock fino alle 7. Se non arriva Manoj prima. Okay. Okay. I'll read a couple more passages and then we'll finish. So this is from the 52nd chapter. Devotees of Krishna are always eager to hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord. His activities, this is a good one for you, for somewhere. His activities of fighting, kidnapping, running away from the battlefield are all transcendental, being on the absolute platform. And devotees take a transcendental interest in hearing of them. The pure devotee does not make the distinction that some activities of the Lord should be heard and others avoided. There is, however, a class of so-called devotees, known as prakrita sahajyas, who are very much interested in hearing about Krishna's rasa lila with the gopis, but not about his fighting with his enemies. They do not know that his bellicose activities, his fighting, and his friendly activities with the gopis are equally transcendental, being on the absolute platform. All the transcendental pastimes of Krishna described in Srimad Bhagavatam are relished by pure devotees through submissive oral reception. They do not reject even a drop. Every drop of Krishna's pastimes, everything that Krishna does. That's why I said if you love someone, you like everything about him, even like, what they're, everything. Everything about their personality. And then this last piece here, from the 13th chapter, it is said that it is the nature of a devotee to constantly apply his mind. If we want to know what is a devotee, how we can become a devotee, we can judge ourselves, are we really devotees? We always think, I'm a devotee. So it is said that it is the nature of a devotee to constantly, satatam kirtayantamam, of a devotee to constantly apply his mind, energy, words, ears, etc. in hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness. And for one who is wrapped in hearing and chanting about Krishna, the subject matter never becomes hackneyed or old. That is the significance of transcendental subject matter in contrast to material subject matter. Like I said, you can read, if you read a chapter a day, you practically will read the Krishna book 3 or 4 times a year. And you can do that. I think it was Prahlada Maharaj, he's read the Krishna book 200 times, I think, something like that. And it's always fresh. I can guarantee you. And actually, the more times you read it, it becomes more fresh. Because you're becoming more purified, and then you relish the same story, the same thing you read, you relish it even more the next time. That's the proof that it's transcendental subject matter. It's not material. I mean, how many times can you read, what do they call, Promesse Sposi? Some famous book in Italian or in English. There's so many literatures. How many times can you read them? It always becomes boring after a while. But Krishna's pastimes, if you're actually practicing Krishna consciousness seriously, following regular principles, chanting Hare Krishna every day, then you'll find that when you read it, Krishna's pastimes, you read it again and again, and then there's always something new. It's always fresh. It's always sweet. It's always relishing. Material subject matter becomes stale, and one cannot hear a certain subject for a long time. He wants change. But as far as transcendental subject matter is concerned, it is called Nitya Nava Navayamana. This means that one can go on chanting and hearing about the Lord and never feel tired, but remain fresh and eager to hear more and more. Jai. So, but to break through that barrier where we can get to that point, we have to endeavor a little bit. We have to practice regularly, get up early, chant every day, read the books. Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, read Srimad Bhagavatam every day, and then gradually, Prabhupada always gives the comparison of what do they call it? Iterizia in italiano. Jaundice, jaundice. We're not so familiar with jaundice here in the West, but if you go to India, you're really likely, if you're not careful, you can very easily get jaundice. And what is the symptom of jaundice? You become yellow. Your eyes become yellow because the bile from the liver comes up. And everything you eat tastes bitter. Even sugar tastes bitter. But Prabhupada said the cure for jaundice, the Ayurvedic cure for jaundice is sugar candy, like solidified sugar. If you eat a little sugar, in the beginning it's bitter, but gradually if you keep eating it, you'll become cured of jaundice, and then sugar is always sweet. It'll taste sweet again to you. In fact, we have a devotee who has this liver problem, and they say everything tastes bitter. So in the beginning you may think, well, you may not relish, it may not seem sweet to you to hear Krishna's pastimes. But if you go on reading, go on chanting, go on hearing about Krishna, then I guarantee you it gradually, because Prabhupada said we're in a jaundiced condition, we're in a distorted condition, we're in a sick condition. But if you take the cure, hearing about Krishna every day, then you'll become free of the disease. And once you become free, then it becomes, you can't stop. Everyone likes sugar, everyone likes sweets. You can't, it becomes sweeter, and so you want to have more and more. So Krishna's pastimes, it becomes sweeter and sweeter as our heart becomes purified by regularly practicing it, hearing about Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So I think we'll end there, and then we can get ready to go outside and greet to do it. So it's still maybe a little later. We're not sure. It's not confirmed that he's coming right now. So if anyone has any last question, you want to ask? Yes. I'm a little deaf, so you have to.
The type of relationship that connects one guru to Krishna.
Not necessarily. Like I said, Lord Chaitanya had followers who were through your chanting, by your chanting of the holy name, eventually the spiritual master will reveal your relationship, will introduce your relationship to Krishna. But each one of us is different. It's not necessarily that. Yes, it's not by chance that people are attracted to Gaudiya Vaishnava movement. Generally, most of Lord Chaitanya's followers were devotees of Radha and Krishna, but not all of them. So it's not necessarily only that one relationship. Plus, we don't know what the relationship of the spiritual master is with Krishna. You can't speculate. You can speculate, but you won't understand. That will be revealed by the spiritual master, and your relationship, but not until we are very purified, very advanced. We can't. It's not something you guess, or you dream, or you artificially speculate that, I'm a gopi, or maybe we're a blade of grass, maybe we're a tree offering their fruit to Krishna. We don't know. Right now, Jivera Srupa Hoy Krishna Nitidas. Right now, our relation is Krishna Das. We're servants of Krishna, that's all. We don't have to speculate any other kind of relation. We can appreciate, that Prabhupada does mention in Nectar of Devotion that if you're naturally attracted to reading certain pastimes of Krishna, that he said that may be an indication that may be, but it's not that you should speculate that, yes, I am like that. But you may gradually like to read certain pastimes of Krishna eventually, but not artificially. Because what is our artificial tendency? We want to be the best. Everybody likes to be the number one, wants to do this. So we think, the gopis are the best. I'll say, okay, I must be a gopi because I'm the best. Oh, maybe we're gopi bharta para kamale or das anu das. servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the master of the gopis. But we don't try to think that we're the best, because we will naturally fall into that tendency to think, I want to know what's the best, and that's when I'm going to be the best. We want to be the servant of the servant of the servant, the most humble, not the best. Yeah.
Why it's so important to stress that Lord Chaitanya Prabhu reviewed this route of the Madhurya relation between Krishna and God. It is not, if naturally, regardless of what our route is, it will reveal once we are ready for it. So why is the importance of the Madhurya route?
Because it's the Prabhupada said all the relationships are equal, they're equally important, all the different rasas with Krishna. But he says, but if you want to if we make a comparison, it's the most intimate, most intense, most pure love for Krishna. But revealed in the sense that if you go to other sampradaya, Ramanuja sampradaya, other sampradayas, there's no information about about Goloka Vrindavan, Radha and Krishna. They speak about Lakshmi Narayan, Vaikuntha, that relationship, Dasya Ras, that's all. And so Lord Chaitanya, that's what we say, he opened the door, he explained, he revealed. And generally it's not very often that Lord Chaitanya does, even Lord Chaitanya does that.
Does it mean that only through Lord Chaitanya, devotees who have this Madhurya Ras can be liberated?
Yes, now in this time, yes. As far as I understand, yes. Because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the sentiment of Radharani, so he's revealing that. But like I said, our business now and our situation is we have to develop the mood of I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotees. And nothing, no more. Don't try to artificially think I'm going to be in some elevated position. Yeah.
In the beginning of the lecture, you asked the question if anyone sees Krishna book as a
Storybook.
Children.
Yeah.
Why would people see that?
Because they haven't read it. Because they haven't read it. And I know there are devotees who haven't read it because they have that impression that it's stories. And they haven't really read it thoroughly. And because they think, you read Krishna book at night before you go to bed, you read to their children the stories of Krishna. But it's much more. That's like I said, just get to the second chapter and you're already, if you're reading the Krishna book stories to your children, you hit the second chapter, you're going to have to jump over it because it's just straight philosophy. Anything else? Okay, I think we can go out. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna, the Supreme Personality. The actual title of the book originally is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. Prabhupada wanted that right on the covers. The Supreme Personality of God. It's not just the Krishna book. It's actually Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. We call it the Krishna book, but it's actually the real title is that. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.